I've just opened my new group coaching program, and to celebrate, I've decided that I was going to share my favorite and also my client's favorite lesson with you, which might be the reason why you're not losing weight, because there's a lot of the stuff that I didn't know until I made this specific masterclass all about alcohol. Because you can drink on a fat loss journey and still see results like this, but it's better to make an informed decision and know exactly what it does to your body, especially when it comes to fat loss. So let's get into it. So this class is all about basically explaining the role of alcohol in fat loss or lack thereof, and understanding the range from using alcohol to sort of numb your emotions to just the ritual of, oh, it's the end of the day, let me have a glass, and just like pleasure. So yeah, we'll dive into the science as always, psychology, even spirituality, because I figured why not, of alcohol consumption and its impact on your health, your fat loss journey, and your well-being. Let's get into it. So the first module obviously is going to be the science of alcohol and what it does to your body, because if you understand exactly what it does, maybe you won't be so keen on drinking so much. For example, okay, hold on, let's do a disclaimer. I drink alcohol. I haven't that much on my fat loss journey just because it's empty calories. And yeah, that's basically what I'm writing right here. It's empty calories, and I don't really feel like wasting my calories on alcohol. And I would rather have food. But otherwise, like if I were in maintenance, I would drink every now and then, and it's fine. Like I'm not saying alcohol is bad, never ever drink ever again. I'm just saying, it might depend on your goals, and we'll see what it does. So yeah, as I said, it contains, let me move. It will be easier if I'm right here. So alcohol contains 7 calories per gram. So this is nearly as calorie dense as fat, which is 9 calorie per gram, and definitely not as much as protein and carbs, which are like roughly 4 calories per gram. But it is empty calories, like I was just saying, because there is no nutrients in there. You don't have any vitamins, minerals, fibers, or protein. It's just, yeah, there's nothing in there. Plus, it is often paired with high sugar mixers, like think about cocktails or fats, which really compound in terms of the calorie load. It like goes up really quickly. So, metabolic priority. That's something that I didn't know until I did this masterclass. And I was like, I did not know that. So, basically, when you drink alcohol, the body is going to stop working on anything else. So, if you've had just food, it's going to stop working on it and breaking it down for energy. And it's just going to prioritize alcohol over every other nutrients, which might lead to storage, like fat storage. Basically the body is like, I'm not going to do anything else until the alcohol is fully gone from the body. So that means that it can actually work through the alcohol for up to 36 hours. That is a full day and a half without any fat burning happening because you've been drinking alcohol. I did not know that. I did not know that. So yeah, it is actually huge when it comes to fat loss. It obviously sorry, creates blood sugar chaos depending on the glass that you have, like depending on the type of alcohol you have, obviously, because you might have something very very sweet, like I don't know, whatever that is, and whatever that cocktail, well, beer, whatever that cocktail is, as opposed to something a bit stronger like whiskey, let's say, or like wine. And it will create, based on the thing you pick. And that's why I'm actually saying, you don't have to cut on alcohol. When I drink, I will never go for a beer. That's not happening. But I will have a glass of red wine. That's my favorite. And blood sugar wise, it's not too bad. I Yeah. Obviously, cocktails are a bit like, which means that it will create like first a peak in blood sugar, especially if you're on empty stomach, and then a big crash, leading to sugar cravings, energy crashes, and emotions kind of not happening really well. And it will make it harder to resist overeating or binging later. Like, who doesn't know going out, drinking a lot, and then having some type of fast food at like 4 a.m.? That's why. Impact of fat loss, as I said, it really literally, suppress the body's ability to burn fat. This means that fat, carbs, and proteins that you've eaten before aren't going to be digested and then for burn while your body clears the alcohol. I'm not going to go over that again, but I guess I just felt like it was so, so important. I don't know how I did not know that, honestly. I didn't realize that it could take 36 hours. Anyways, hormonal effects again, we're going to go back to the fact that alcohol can disrupt like the internal thing happening, especially hormones related to appetite and metabolism. It does a lot more things. We're going to get into that. But obviously, we first see it through the spectrum of you're trying to lose weight. And it impacts leptin and ghrelin. As you can see here, ghrelin spikes when you, which is the hunger hormone, when you drink, as opposed to control, which had no type of like alcohol at all. So even just a few drinks can actually increase hunger, reduce fullness signals, and I mean, you'll just are more likely to get into the fuck it mentality when it comes to food choices as well. And that's a dangerous cycle for the people who are prone to binge eating, emotional eating, or just have a all or nothing food mindset of, well, I've had a glass of wine or I've had a drink, so might as well just blew my calories. Key takeaways. As I said, alcohol is energy, definitely not nutrition. It fills your calorie, intake for the day, but without feeding your body, it literally prevents your body from going into fat burning mode. That's, yeah. The metabolism halts other processes to clear alcohol, especially fat burning in our case, and even moderate drinking can actually disrupt your appetite, mood, blood sugar, and decision making. Again, when it comes to fat loss, not helpful. Also wanted to do a quick mention on organ health. It will definitely impact chronic alcohol intake will impact your liver first, which can lead to fatty liver, hepatitis, and this one I'm not even gonna cirrhosis. Well, you can read. Brain, obviously, I have a little image coming up soon as to how it works on the brain in terms of memory. Long-term use may result in cognitive impairment and structural brain changes. It changed the chemical structure of your brain. I'm not going to get too much into that after because it's not like you need it. I mostly wanted to see it through the spectrum of first, this is what it does to your body, especially weight loss, then to your mind spiritually, and this is what you can do like mentally and so on, and this is what you can do to sort of shift if you feel like you may be drinking too much. And heart, obviously, excessive drinking will increase the risk of hypertension or cardiomyopathy. Chapter 2, psychological aspects of alcohol use. So, first, it creates dopamine, like it releases more dopamine in the brain. So, that's the feel good neurotransmitter. Important to realize and remember for the what I'm going to be talking about in a second. But this is why you feel that sense of euphoria, relief, and comfort rather, and especially if before you've been like feeling stressed and so on. But the thing is, the brain will remember this reward and crave it again. And that's why it will sort of get to be that pleasure trap when you will need that alcohol to get that sense of dopamine. And even more later, because you will have you will need more to get the same shot of dopamine, like same amounts basically. Okay, really quickly, alcohol increases GABA, which is a calming neurotransmitter in very like easy terms, and it decreases glutamate, which is basically an excitatory one. So that's why it creates that numbing feeling, but it will lead to feeling switched off, and it will also actually lead like even if at first you feel like less anxiety, overthinking, and emotional overwhelm, then you will feel more anxious. Like there are a ton of studies about alcohol consumption over time making you more anxious, more depressed, and more emotionally unstable, especially the next day as the brain tries to rebalance from the hormonal imbalance that alcohol has created. Emotional consequences, we have some sort of numbing to binge loop because many people use alcohol, well, some people use alcohol to, I'm not going to say that. Not just unwind, but completely numb their emotions. Okay. So at first, it will start, well, I have a glass of wine because it's like the ritual of pleasure, of like, it's the day, like the day's over, it's nice. But it will eventually become, especially with the dopamine and the glutamine and the GABA, all of that, a pattern of avoidance. You might numb feeling like loneliness, anger, shame, fear, anxiety, even though it creates, more of it in the long term. But it's just like everything, short-term benefits despite long-term negative consequences. While you look at this one, let me obviously, that everyone knows, alcohol reduces, like lowers your inhibitions, if that's how you say it. So it reduces the, activity in the prefrontal cortex, which governs decision making, impulsive control, and long-term memory. And actually, that's literally why, you're more likely, as I said, to binge eat, emotional eat, and fuck it mentality, because it reduces what's going on here. So that's, yeah, one glass can really lead to self-sabotage, even one drink, as I said. And this study I found really interesting. 15-year-old non-drinker versus heavy drinker, you can see like the activity is pretty much gone for like yeah, it's pretty much gone, especially when it comes to memory and all of that. So yeah, it has a lot of impact and we don't really realize it. And like, the reason why I figured heavy drinking on teen would actually be reasonable to talk about here is because even if you're not a heavy drinker, you have had a longer time to drink, so it has had a longer time to also affect your brain. But yeah, emotional hangover. After the dopamine spike comes a crash. Just like glucose and like blood sugar, it will come a crash, and it's not just going to be physical. You will feel the ugh after alcohol, right? I actually didn't talk about how it also, I don't know why, um dehydrates your body as well, which is never a good thing. And it also disrupts serotonin and melatonin, which will impact your mood and sleep cycles. Like, I guess you can, for those of you who like track their sleep, you will see after a night of just like not necessarily heavy drinking, but like 2-3 glasses of wine or whatever, I can speak of experience here, the I have less deep sleep and I feel rest like not well as well rested the next day after I've been drinking, right? And yeah, that's because it will impact your melatonin, which is really about sleep. So it really creates that loop of drinking, feeling relief, but sort of regretting and anxiety after, and drinking again. Key takeaways: alcohol chemically alters your brain. As we've seen, it numbs your emotion temporarily while increasing long term emotional instability, as well as long term reliance to it, because as you've seen, it sort of increases the feel good hormones for a hot second, but you will need more and more to get the same like head of those feelings and like dopamine and all of that. And therefore, you will need more and more. And that's kind of a dark pattern to fall into. Yeah, its impact on dopamine and inhibition makes it really dangerous for binge eaters and emotional eaters. We've talked about it. And yeah, the ritual of drinking can be way more than just emotional. Um, and the brain will wire it as a survival tactic unless you stop it, which we're going to talk about in a second. But it's just going to see like, okay, I've got this bad feeling and I've got this thing that I do, which is drinking, that actually helps me, like not feeling it. And obviously it doesn't like that, like discomfort. So even if it's, yeah, the brain doesn't really, it's not that it doesn't care what you do, but it will definitely choose the easier options most of the time. Right, we talked about the. I'm just pretending that you haven't watched the full, course. But so that's why I like the 5 module course. That's why I'm talking about here the cue, routine, reward loop again, because habits, like, it works in the loop. You've got the cue, then the routine, then the actual action. No, cue, craving, routine, reward. Right. So first you have a cue, which might be a specific time, a specific person, a specific feeling. You've got like, oh, I'm done with work, so let me have that glass. Oh, I'm cooking, so let me have that like while I cook. Then you've got the craving, because your brain is going to be like, ooh, that's what we do, dopamine, and the hormones that we've talked about like 5 minutes ago. Then you've got the actual routine of, opening the bottle, pouring a glass, and maybe it is associated with like snacking or cooking or whatever type of routine, like the specific action. And then the reward, we've seen everything, right? So over time your brain will crave that reward, and that's why it's harder and harder to get out of your habits, because that's the loop. Like, it sort of gets reinforced, and it will start to, even just anticipating will create the craving immediately. Like, you will not necessarily need the cue. Just thinking about, ooh, glass, even if it's like random, will automatically get you in that loop, even if you're not consciously like choosing it. For example, if the cue is like a feeling, if you're feeling that at 9 a.m., you're gonna have like, it's gonna start that cue as well. Sorry, that's my phone. The more often a loop is repeated, the more automatic and ingrained it becomes, as I've just said. So you're not lacking discipline, it's just your brain doesn't like hard work and change. So once it has a script, it prefers staying in there. That's why it's harder at first to break from a loop and to change, but then it gets easier and easier because it will have to relearn the script and then it just becomes more and more automatic. Right, the evening ritual trap. I've talked about it already, but you transition out of the day. It's like, okay, I'm done with work and it's my me time, or you're cooking, or it's sort of that escape, right? And you feel like, oh, it's like kind of a reward and like pleasure and whatever. Drinking becomes a shortcut to relief, but when repeated often, that's how your brain wires it as a default coping mechanism. And I mean, obviously, that overrides your long term goals, and you will actually need more and more overtime to have, again, that's like the third time I'm saying that, but that's because you really need to get that, to have the same hit of dopamine and of GABA and feeling good. So yeah, it's just gonna create that shortcut of like immediate thing, pew, alcohol. Let me take a break. Okay. Evening drinking is, as I said, part of a conditioned habit loop and not a moral failing or an addiction. It's just a habit loop, just like binge eating, which is a habit. There is no moral attached to whatever I'm saying here, or yeah, no shame or whatever. It's just like it's a habit loop. Your brain is conditioned to have habits. It's a habit loop. By understanding your personal cues and cravings, which you'll have down below, you can disrupt the pattern with conscious, nourishing replacements. And I'm not talking about food, I'm just talking about feeling what basically filling whatever gaps you're trying to like fill with alcohol. And yeah, again, you can't break a bad habit, you can only replace it and rewire it. You can't like remove the habit of drinking, you will have to find something else to do instead or replace the actual drink. Okay, this one you can like pretty much skip if that doesn't resonate with you, because I know it's gonna resonate a lot with some of you and definitely not with others of you, like the spiritual aspect. I mean, it's fine, let's get into it. Okay, emotional role, as we've seen, it's not just a drink, it's really for emotional regulation. It's to numb sadness, anxiety, or loneliness, to escape your mind and your thoughts, to connect when you feel isolated, and sort of to reward yourself, as I've said, after a hard day. So it's just a soothing technique. Okay, and just like binge eating, after that the problems or whatever you were trying to avoid come back. So that's why it's like only a shortcut, and it does have a cost because you will bypass emotional processing, disconnect from your body's true needs, and weaken your own inner coping mechanism. Okay, let's talk about emotional avoidance versus awareness, because if you drink to numb your feelings instead of feeling them, you just postpone them because they're going to come back the moment you're not, I want to say, like tipsy drunk anymore. So the emotions don't disappear, they will resurface in binge episodes, burnout or shutdown, body tension or fatigue, chronic dissatisfaction and mood swings. And the more you avoid emotions with alcohol, the more emotionally reactive you become over time, because the more unstable you're going to be. And it's like basically, pun unintended, you're just trying to bottle up your feelings. At some point they're just gonna poof. That's why it's actually really, I don't know if I'm the right person to do that. Well, I don't know if it's the right place, but when you have a feeling, just feel it, like sit with it and let it just, it's basically just gonna go. Like when I have a bad feeling, I sit with it, I let it, I just let my body process it. And sometimes it takes 5 minutes. Sometimes I need to go for a run. I just need to process it and stay with that feeling. And then experiencing it will basically like allow it to go away. And then it goes away and I can move on. And that's my coping mechanism, or at least my emotional awareness tactic, let's say. So, rebuilding emotional safety without the drink. You don't need to get rid of your emotion. You need to build capacity, as I was saying, to sit with them. And it starts with first naming it. So, you recognize, as I've just explained, you name it like, oh, okay, I'm feeling this. Instead of running away from it and saying, no, 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 I don't want to be feeling that. You feel it. You're like, okay, well, this is what it is. This is like, you feel it. And you can do some type of, somatic anchoring. I like to yeah, sit with the discomfort, and just do a body scans or sort of type of breathing and still sitting with the discomfort. And then, as I said, my safety ritual is just going outside and going for a run. Like, this is my favorite thing to do. Or you can make yourself a cup of tea. I know a lot of you like journaling, so you can do that. Just basically replacing the wind down type of, habit. Yeah, I think I said that a couple of times, but it's that way. Really, like, your brain learns through repetition, and so does your nervous system. It will learn safety through repetition, not avoidance. So yeah, it's uncomfortable to sit with a negative emotion. It's uncomfortable, but at some point it's gonna come out, one way or another. It's gonna come out. Okay, this is for my spiritual people. At a deeper level, alcohol often serves as an attempt to fill spiritual voids. It sort of disconnects, like, there is that disconnection from purpose or joy or lack of, well, that's what it's trying to feel, rather. Sorry, I'm going ahead of what I want to say. Disconnection from purpose or joy, lack of inner peace or stillness, a hunger for more meaning or depth, or feeling like something is missing but not knowing what. That's what alcohol often actually, like, tries to feel. And that's why you feel so restless when you're, like, sober, or you're afraid of what will come up without alcohol. And emotionally, you will feel emotionally exposed or empty when the drinking stops. Basically, it silences the signals from within. And I've read, I don't know, am I talking about that? I might not. Basically, I read studies, and this one is, like, really interesting. It's not about, like, spirituality in this, well, it is, but it's also about religion, whatever spirituality, like, however you practice it. Basically, it will increase as you recover from, like, as alcoholics in that case, like, were recovering, they were more in touch with, like, their connection to faith, and however it works with you, right? And your intuition, and yeah, just the spiritual side of things. And because you didn't need to fill that void with alcohol, you actually had that cup ready to be filled with more spirituality, and however that actually works out for you. So reconnecting with your higher self, best self, fitter self, healthier self, however, favorite self, however you want to call it, but truly letting go of alcohol grip, you, like, wow, you must reconnect with the part of you that doesn't need it. So that means, developing self trust, learning that you can sit with the discomfort and with the emotional, like, yeah, the emotional discomfort, and actually feeling it and not collapsing. Like, it's going to be fine. You are going to sit in discomfort. And however long it's going to take, 10, 20, 30 minutes, you will get out of the on the other side, okay? And that's important to know. Building ritual that connects you to meaning, whether it's nature, arts, movement, breath work, journaling, or meditation, and any, whatever basically spirituality means to you as well. And exploring joy, not just discipline, like what lights you up from the inside. Again, that might be faith and all of that, that aren't connected to alcohol. The goal isn't to replace alcohol with control, but just with, like, it's to return to that wholeness sense of, like, you without needing alcohol. Okay, let me drink again. Okay. What happens again when we drink emotion in terms of emotional processing? It basically, as I said, blocks the emotional processing system, which is, like, essential for healthy mental, like, for mental health and being healthy, emotional development. And drinking, you basically drink to escape discomfort, or you pause but never complete the emotional cycle. I'm slightly repeating myself here. And yeah, it's basically what I said, right? It is basically what I explained. Yeah. Okay. The cost of numbing. You stop trusting your feelings, you lose clarity on your needs and boundaries, and you become emotionally reactive instead of responsive. And yeah, again, you will get that emotional fragility long term and instability, because you will always look for that relief. And if you sort of stop yourself from getting it, it will be, like, a little bit hard at first, I guess, when you habitually, numb through alcohol. Okay, here is basically a first step in getting out of the cycle if you feel like you are in that. So it isn't about like perfect self-control. It's about staying present with what is real and choosing how to respond instead of trying to ignore it and replace it with alcohol, whatever it might be. It's asking, okay, what am I feeling right now? And no judgment. Again, you name it to tame it. What do I need right now that I or did I need today that I didn't necessarily give to myself? Was it just like a chance to pause? Was it movement? Was it like anything else? What would I say? As always, if you can't be kind to yourself, try to speak to yourself the way you would speak to the person you love the most, your kids, your partner, your friend, your sibling, whatever. And then you can, well, that's how I sit with my emotion. I tend to, sort of sit down and breathe and let the emotion calm. And if I cry, I cry. But just, anchor you before a craving hits. And then you sort of, what's the word? Mm, alchemize does not sound like the right word. But basically, you transform that emotion into like, you basically express that emotion. I don't know why I went so far. It was written here. For me, it's definitely movement, but it might be journaling, it might be art, music, writing, whatever. The more you learn to sit with discomfort, the less you need to escape from it. And use alcohol for that. Okay, so why this matters for binge recovery and fat loss. When emotional intelligence rises, impulsivity lowers. So you begin to notice urges before they escalate. You eat or drink with awareness, not on autopilot. You recover from lapses faster and with more self compassion. And your goals actually align with your values, not just your pain. So it isn't, again, it's literally not avoiding your emotions. To master your emotions doesn't mean avoiding them and being like, no, I don't want to feel that one, so I'm not going to feel it. Oh, yes, I want to feel that one, so let me feel that. It's like moving through it and letting yourself, go through all of them, regardless of what it is, and experience all of them despite of the discomfort that it's going to create. Okay. I think I've already given you some, practical strategies, but let's dive a bit deeper into that. So first, again, as always, you want to become aware and, bring the patterns into light. You will have a lot of journaling prompts down below to sort of know exactly what your um, triggers might be. And you basically can't change if you're not aware of it, which is why what this masterclass is for. Because if you're not aware that it's going to prevent you from losing weight, for example, if that is a huge reason for you, you might say, well, let me cut back on alcohol. But the thing is, most people don't binge, for that matter, or drink out of nowhere. It's really the result of a repeatable loop that often feels invisible until you actually track it and notice it. So it builds clarity around what you feel, not just what you do. So you'll be better at, feeling, well, realizing, oh, when I'm feeling that, but not this, but that, but not this, I actually, end up wanting to drink. And it will turn the abstract, I just feel off, into like a specific actionable insight, because you will know exactly what you're supposed to do. And it will definitely help you slow down the automatic behavior of, I feel bad, therefore alcohol. So yeah, daily journaling can really help with that, especially when it comes to emotional reactivity and behavioral control. I'm a big journaling girly anyway. What to track? You have everything down below, I believe. But you want to figure out the time and context, and the trigger and the cue. Maybe the craving, like, what are you craving right now? Like, basically, you'll have, like, well, first the emotions, and then, like, okay, what am I craving from that? And yeah, don't go so, like, just figure out exactly what it is. Don't say, well, I'm feeling bad. No, 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 no. Because maybe anxious will not make you want to drink as angry will. For example, I don't know. It depends on the person. What you consumed, like, did you have alcohol? Did you have any food? What type of food? And how it felt in your body. And then the post behavior reflection, like, how did you feel after this? Did you feel regretful, calm, sleepy, more emotional? Did it really help? Did you, yeah, there's like, did you feel more anxious? It's not a bad thing to let yourself experience the full drinking, loop, and then reflect on what did it bring to you, both positive and negative, to be able to see, well, maybe I actually don't like it that much. Because as I said, you can completely drink on this journey and still see results, right? But you might just do it for other reasons, mostly because you'll realize, well, it's not that I'm like I'm doing this for that, but it's not actually bringing me that, so maybe I don't need it like I thought I did. There's a lot. It's like really one-on-one, we'll talk about it. Yeah, as I said, as always, identify your triggers, which comes from the patterns, right? And we've talked about this, but it's an internal or external, cue basically that will set off the craving and the autopilot reaction. You've got like emotional triggers like stress, sadness, shame, boredom, celebration. In that case, oftentimes it's okay, but sometimes you don't want to drink with other people. It really depends. Environmental, as I've said, end of work day, you're cooking, you're alone, you've got that social setting. Cognitive thought of like, well, I deserve this, or I've already ruined it today, or just one more hurt. And physical, whether it's fatigue, hunger, tension, hormonal fluctuation, you have to realize that those are not problems, they're just signals. And when you decode them, you can just choose instead of, reacting. You can say, well, I'm feeling that, and usually I would do that, but maybe what would actually help me the most is doing this, for example. And then, as I said, you can't break a habit, you can only replace it. So, one of the first thing you can do is, again, that's not something you have to do for every single drink. You can do that like you choose, really. I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm just telling you here is like what's happening. Here are the consequences. You do whatever you want with that information. But I do recommend exploring non-alcoholic beverages as the easiest way to sort of break the loop, because it will still be the exact same habit, which is you are doing something, drinking. Yeah, sparkling water with like fresh fruits. I didn't write it, but I have sparkling water with that 0 calorie lemonade or Coke sweetener. Really works really well. Herbal tea, non-alcoholic mocktails, which can probably, make you feel a little bit bougie, I guess. Kombucha or any type of fermented drink, because it will also promote gut health. So you're like doing something really good for your body anyways. Or low calories, as I said, infused water or sparkling water. And then you also have, activities that promote relaxation and pleasure, because again, this is what we tend to think that alcohol will bring us, but you've got those mindful practices like breathing, meditation, or yoga, or whatever you like, journaling or gratitude writing, having that really evening type of ritual setup, light physical activities such as walking, for example, or stretching, creative hobbies, or social alternatives, hosting or joining sober meetings, for example. I feel like maybe not, but we all have that one friend who doesn't drink. I don't know, maybe not, but I feel like maybe we do. Hmm. I should have talked about the influence of other people, because when you don't drink, people are definitely going to give you a shit time. So being like, well, you're not fun. There is a whole entire societal type of, influence and reason as to why you might drink as well. But this, yeah, I might refer you to the Cravings and Control masterclass about society or people's influence or peer pressure. This one can be applied to alcohol. I definitely could have added it to this one, but it's already long, so and yeah, creating an evening ritual that will really, because it's often in the evening that you drink. So yeah, have that like soothing type of stress relief pre-bed ritual can help, basically replacing the cocktail hour, right? Creating a supportive environment for when you feel like you deserve, that glass. Well, no, how about you deserve a supportive environment with this and that. Reinforcing the positive mindset. I'm going to brush through those because I feel like I've given you a lot of good tools already, and I don't want to overwhelm you with like all the things that you can do. Yeah, remember that repetition is reprogramming. Your brain doesn't need perfection, but it needs repetition. And as I said, it's going to weaken, like the first habit that you're trying to, like the habit loop that you're trying to break is going to be weakened. And that means that like over time, as they're not repeated, but that means that you won't necessarily change over time. And that's why in a second I'm going to talk about milestones, and not necessarily saying, well, I'm going to quit cold turkey, and instead saying, well, realistically, maybe I could go from 3 glasses a night to 1 glass, or from drinking like every night to just like 3 nights. I don't know, whatever it might be for you, but you definitely want to realize that the more often you intention as always is like the key, disrupt the loop, the more power you can reclaim, and the easier it will be to not repeat the programming that you don't want and start something that you feel would serve you better. So yeah, within just 3 or 4 weeks of practicing like consistently, the urge itself of like, oh, I would need a drink is going to fade. Let me You've got a lot of support system. First off, you've got me. We'll talk about what you can do if you feel like this is something that you'd like to work on. You've got a lot of, online or local sobriety groups, online forums, and social media groups. I'm not specialized in that, but I mean, I can always help you. But you've got like licensed counselors and psychologists, therapy to really figure out the root causes if you feel like you need something. But having an accountability or reward system to actually stay consistent, with the alcohol-free days, I really refer you to the habit section of the big module because it might help you with like, yeah, reward system and no drinking and all of that. Last module, it's going to be very short, sustaining change and embracing empowerment. You've got, yeah. First, as I said, you want to start with creating short-term goals, and you don't have to quit like cold turkey. Actually, really recommend you don't. And yeah, you want to just reduce a little bit and replace when you can. And one thing that I really recommend is that you craft your long-term vision and ask yourself, would my ideal self drink that much, for example? And then you also want to ask yourself, is this specific habit aligning with my values in terms of health, family, confidence, longevity, or whatever, spirituality, whatever it may be for you? And also imagining your daily routines and your social lives as well, and basically everything that comes from not drinking. um just imagine what that's going to look like on your self-image, your energy levels, your health, your goals, and everything. Yeah, as I said, reflect on what it will mean and use that long-term vision of, would my ideal self, dream self, actually do that? And they basically used it as a guide throughout the days and weeks. And don't forget to celebrate, the progress, even the small victories of, oh, I haven't been drinking tonight. It's it will fuel your motivation, actually release the dopamine, as I said, and reinforce the positive behavior. And yeah, you can treat yourself to non-food rewards like a massage, new workout gears, favorite hobby, whatever else you may want, and make sure to share your successes with supportive friends, family, accountability partner, or me. You will find everything you need down below as always. As I said, you don't have to stop, but reducing alcohol is a powerful step when it comes to achieving your fat loss and overall goals and overall better health. You've got a lot of healthy alternatives in terms of what you can do instead, and emotional, awareness to help you replace those habits without sacrificing relaxation or pleasure. Make sure to, as always, set realistic goal for yourself and celebrate progress to stay motivated and create the changes you want. And reflect on everything you've just seen here, and just through the lens of like the vision you have and the person you want to become. That was it for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to join the group community thing coaching program, the link is down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.